That's Jeff on his KLR. I was just here talking about the Darling River, and he's out running around, checking things out.
Living the dream.
Living the dream. It's 30-year-old, these things, aren't they?
Yeah, but I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I grew up on dirt bikes.
Yep.
I've got a Harley in Newcastle. Haven't had a dirt bike for about 35 years.
Right.
This is my first adventure.
Yep.
Into
Okay.
bikes.
Good.
And mate, I'm loving it.
Perfect.
Yeah. That'll be a highlight.
Thanks, Jeff. See you, mate.
Yeah.
Interesting guy. He's just moved up from Newcastle up here to Bourke, and he's teaching up here and bought himself a dirt bike so he could explore the place. What better place to do it? Fantastic. So that's the Darling River. We've got some exploring to do, folks. Yeah, so I was actually, just as Jeff rolled up, I was just talking about this intersection of the river. It was kind of here that Hamilton Hume and Charles Sturt kind of came through here. So one of the good things about meeting Jeff is he's new to the area as well. I mean, he's been here for 6 months, but he's telling me all the locations and all the spots to go from the eyes of a new person, which is good. So we've got a few places to visit over the next few days while I'm here. Tips and tricks from locals, always much appreciated. So thanks for that, Jeff. Another Jeff. That was a little hot. I want to show you guys the look at these hawks just floating. There's a bit of roadkill on the road here, but I want to show you something. It's called the white circle of death. Oh. I stopped on the highway, and the birds are just tearing away at this poor, what's left of the roo. Do you see all the oh, come on. Well, the bird pop, it just creates a big white circle. And then when the carcass has finally been consumed and gone, there's just these white circles all over the highway. So, anyway, it's a warning to me to not be riding around here in the evening. Alright, so let's go to Mount Oxley. And the story behind Mount Oxley is, let's go way back. So, they were walking through this kind of countryside. Now if I look over here, a lot of this has been cleared, and a bit of agriculture and land clearing and dams and all that sort of stuff. You probably can't see that, but over here, this is the sort of country they were walking through. And in order to try and find a perspective or a way ahead or something on the horizon, the only option they had was to climb a power pole. No, to climb a tree. So they had to climb a tree and try and see if they could find a landmark or something to go in the direction of. So you can imagine they're walking through this kind of bush, and they send one of the fellas up the tree, and he sees a mountain or a tableland. This is back in 1828, and they said, look, there's it's kind of due west, northwest of us from here. There's a bit of a hilly outcrop, and so they headed towards that. And as they got closer and closer to it, they couldn't believe how this massive rocky outcrop could just be out in the middle of nowhere. So it was called Mount Oxley, or actually initially Charles Sturt called it Oxley Tableland after John Oxley, who was the explorer that came out looking for the rivers in 1818. Now, you remember when we talked about John Oxley and Alan Cunningham, when they came out this way, so Oxley and Cunningham came out and they kind of started up near Brisbane Way. So, it wasn't known as Brisbane then, but it was kind of Moreton Bay, and they started from there and they came out and they followed some of these rivers, and they followed the Guida River, and they followed the McIntyre, and they came out to here, and they got out to this area, but it was actually in the middle of a flood season. Oh, 50 k's, and the cops just went past. So it was the middle actually of a flood season, and they just couldn't get through. So they turned around and went back. But when Sturt came out 10 years later, it was basically at the end of it, like at a drought, because it was just completely dry. The Darling, when Charles Sturt got out here in 1828, the Darling River was just nothing but puddles of this really, really salty brine, and it was completely unuseful. In fact, there's a story that his men ran into it, and the horses and everyone ran down to this puddle of water and just dove into it kind of head first, trying to get something to drink because they're all so thirsty. And they all ended up throwing up because the water was so salty and just completely undrinkable. But they came out here and what they needed to do was they needed to find some elevated ground so they could actually have a look and pick the direction they wanted to go. And that's a levee walk. But just imagine walking with your bullock drays and your horses and everything through this kind of bush. And trying to find on the horizon some kind of landmark. But that's where we're going to go. We're going to go and stand in the spot where Charles Sturt stood, and we're going to look out over the land that he looked over. And he stood there with his compass and his and this is in December 1928. So they had a thermometer that had been sent over from England, and the thermometer was calibrated to the maximum temperature of 127 degrees. That's Fahrenheit. So the temperature gauge they were using, or the thermometer they were using, the mercury, he said, just blew straight out the top of it. That's how hot it was. We go to Tarcoon Road now. They'll probably have to change the name of that, won't they? Tarcoon. They just recently stopped calling coon cheese because, it's offensive. So this is Tarcoon Road. Don't cry. I mean, even still, as close as we are, you can only see the tableland because of the clearing from the road. So these guys must have been right up underneath it before they could see it properly. So I'm so impressed. Like, they were hard men. They were hard men. They slept on the ground. None of this, body shaping foam roll up mattress inflatable stuff. They basically slept in the clothes they were in, riding horses, walking their cattle. Oh, we need to go this way. And just unbelievable, and they're walking through this kind of stuff. They had to take everything, they had to take all their food, because they, in fact, he says in his book there was a couple of occasions where they shot some ducks, and they had obviously had some duck orange for dinner that night, but it was an absolute treat. And he talked about how much his men enjoyed the feast of duck, as opposed to basically eating salted meat, which the only way they could preserve food back then was just to salted pork and salted beef. dried and sold it. Probably a little bit like what we know as biltong. Well, here we are, we'll come out into this clearing, and there it is, Mount Oxley. I suspect this might not be naturally clear, but you can imagine how happy they would have been to see a rocky outcrop like this. Mount Oxley. Mrs. Jones is feeling fine. This guy coming up to the gate. I'll do the gate for him, mate. All right, here we go. What if it's sealed all the way? Oh, well, that's pretty dull. I thought it was going to be a bit more of a challenge than that. It is pretty narrow though, so staying out wide so that I can see around the corners. The reason they seal these roads is just so that they don't have to keep coming back and repairing them, because you know, people chop them up with their four-wheel drives and trucks and everything. There's somebody up here camping already, so we think we might be doing some photography tonight. Alright, so there you go. For all you adventure bike riders, you can actually come up here. I think you've got to pay to camp overnight, but there's a camp spot here. Look at that. Alright, a little bit of dronage. It's quite a big it's quite a big outcrop in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you can understand why Sturt was so keen to get up top of here and have a look. It's kind of like where's the river? I think I'm going to pull up here. Like, where's the river? It does my head in that they walked all the way from Sydney, and I'll do a straight line from here to Sydney, but they didn't walk, they rode horses, and they stayed out here for months and months and months, and it was the middle of summer. It just would have been so hot Like, it just would have been 50 degrees plus. And he talks about in his journal how it was just so hot at times. They just, you know, even the trees looked like they were struggling, which they are, because anyway, let's get out of here.